Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Getting Started Workshop for Beginners. Today's presentation will be recorded and sent out to all registered participants and also be posted on the Hub. As this is a workshop, we welcome your participation and interaction. We will have a Q&A portion throughout the presentation. You can type your questions into the question box on the webinar doc on you're welcome to raise your hand to ask questions verbally. We're excited to share this time with you today. Now on to Liesl with Textile Exchange. Liesl?
Thank you, Rose, and welcome everybody to our very first for the season Getting Started workshop. This has been curated for beginners and new people. We know that we have a number of new companies already showing a lot of interest in benchmarking with us this year, and we also know that there's a few of you that either have swapped hands within your company and have new people starting, or you'd like that refresher right from the start again yourself. Everybody's welcome to this session. It very much is a Getting Started Beginners session, and it is available for returning back to, so we know a lot of you will pick this up again through the recording. I'd like to start by introducing my colleague Preena Pandey. It will be her and I, hi Preena, that will be hosting you for the next hour and a half. Preena, do you want to say a quick hi?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we are very excited to deliver this Getting Started workshop to you today.
Great. So let's have a look at the agenda. The very first thing we wanted to mention is that we launched our materials change insight report last year, just yesterday for the last program. So we thought this would be a good moment to remind you, if you haven't seen it already, to go and have a look at the report. There will be a recording available soon of the conversation that we had yesterday with some of our leader companies, and that's inspiring and gives you a sense of what's happening for companies that have been involved for a while. We totally recommend having a look through this report, sharing it with your colleagues. And of course, if you haven't already, please do join our community hub, where we're taking more of these conversations online so that they don't start and end with a 1-hour webinar, but really just build momentum for more dialogue. So that was something we just wanted to raise onto your agenda right from the start. And this is what we've got lined up for you. I'm going to talk about the program, just giving you a sense of context, where we are with it, where it's heading. It's in a state of flux. That's what benchmarking is all about, this continuous improvement. We're going to go and have a look at the survey and how it looks now. And Preena's going to talk you through the preliminary steps of getting started and getting yourself set up on the program into the ProBench system. And then we're going to talk about some of the guidance and support that's on hand, because we know our hour and a half will hopefully be very informative, but won't be everything that you will need throughout the process. And this is the bit that's really important to us, that you know where to go and how to get that support. I'm going to show you what you get for all the efforts that you've invested in the program. This is obviously incredibly important to get something back. We've got Q&A scheduled here at the end. We're probably going to be a small group. As Rose said, please do raise your hand. We're able to unmute you. We will be very much encouraging that discussion when things come up for you. I think if it comes up for one of you, you can guarantee that others will be thinking the same thing and more wishing somebody would ask it. So let's use this in the true spirit of a workshop and be as interactive as you like to be. Right. So if you haven't heard of the program yet, it's brand new. We know there's a lot of acronyms, and we're trying very hard to use those acronyms less. And we're also trying to unpack how these different parts of the program come together, because it is a big and rather complex program if you're not living and breathing it every single day. So this, I hope, helps give you a level of insight without getting too complicated. So we talk about the Material Change Index, which is the largest voluntary peer-to-peer comparative initiative in the fashion and textile industry. And it tracks the sector's progress towards more sustainable materials sourcing, as well as alignment with efforts like the Sustainable Development Goals and the transition to a circular economy. So it focuses very much on your materials portfolio, but builds in this alignment with really important strategic directions that we need to be considering. And you may have heard this other term, which is, if you like, the baseline of the program and the overarching program term, and that's the corporate fiber and materials benchmark. And as the benchmark program grows, there's more and more outputs and products. And our biggest one in terms of public facing tools is the Material Change Index. So you might hear us talk a little bit between the two. Just remember, CFMB program level, MCI index result, leaderboard, public facing. I hope that helps. We'll continue to finesse that. So this slide just really shows, and I would just notice that our colleague Jessie has joined as well. So there's more of us to answer your questions. So as we said, feel free to raise hands, use the Q&A bar. Right, so this gives you that sense of how far we've come since the pilot in 2015. 57 companies, mostly all members of Textile Exchange, said, hey, we know preferred materials is really important. We know it's more than just the uptake of and joining a particular standard or a certification. We know we need to strategize around this agenda. There's so many things we want to do, we should be doing. Can we build a framework that helps guide that process for us and build some kind of alignment across the industry so we know where we're going, we know where our gaps are, we know what we need to do next, and we know how to communicate this as a company, but also as an industry. So that spiked that first pilot, and we're forever grateful for those 57 companies that got us started. Then what we called version 1, it was this 2016 to 2018. So benchmarking, it's important to keep a year-on-year comparison for as many years as you can, really, to get that sense of progress at the company level and also at the sector or industry level. But of course, the goalposts keep changing. We need to push further, we need to go deeper. And so every 3 years, we step back and reflect with all our stakeholders, particularly our participating companies, and say, hey, how do we drive this even further and meet the growing expectations of ourselves as well, as companies, as organizations, as well as the industry and society at large. So then from 2019 to 2021, we've been running, or 2020 to 20, over the last 3 years, we have been in this, what we call V2, and I'd stumble over that a little bit because we're in a transition phase, which is taking 2 years instead of 1 year. And this is because we're wanting to get that deeper level of alignment with the Climate Plus strategy. So we can talk more about that, but just to say that over the last couple of years, as you can see on the chart here, we introduced the biodiversity benchmark, and that was an amazing spike of interest where right from the word go, we had 157 companies sign up to do that. And as you can see with the lighter blue there, we've been introducing and piloting the supplier manufacturer survey, and in all transparency, resourcing this growing program is really important to us to do well. So we've been building the supplier pilot quite gently, but we know there's a lot more manufacturers and suppliers that are really keen to get involved, and we're very much encouraging that. We think we need leadership right through the supply chain, a material strategy to supplier of a a raw material or a processed material is just as important. A strategy, sorry, is just as important to a supplier as it is to a brand. So that's where we're heading, and you'll see through more of the slides that there's more moving parts now to capture these and flex the program with these growing needs of the industry. So it's exciting. Right, you're with me so far. So it's always nice to just to reflect and to celebrate the companies that have stepped forward. They're transparently in the program, tracking progress, leading the way, and it's grown, as we could see in the slide before, to nearly 300 companies. And these are the ones, and we're very excited to know that if you're new to the program, are joining this class. You'll be the class of 2022, and we're super excited to have you join and be involved. And we'll talk a little bit more later. And if we forget, please remind us about the level of confidentiality, because we don't share company data at that granular level. It's very much aggregated, and we talk about this more as a community, whilst driving a race to the top by having our leaderboard. We'll talk more about that as well. I think I've kind of alluded to these. We roll them out every time because we're not doing this as Textile Exchange in some tiny little bubble. This is a very big movement around driving change at the pace and the depth and the scale that we need it to be driven. And some of you may have heard of the World Benchmarking Alliance. There's other programs also within this space that are using the tools of benchmarking, the cyclic performance improvement methodology to drive change in different areas. We believe we've got a pretty strong model, and we know others look to our model and want to learn about it. The United Nations PRI, the Principles for Responsible Investing, and very many others within the WBA are looking to our model as one that works. And Prina, I know you're going to talk a bit more about our partnerships to deliver that. So this is just really to say, society has expectations. We all know that they're changing and growing all the time. We need a space to clarify what it means to contribute to the sustainability agenda. That's with strong data, strong indicators, strong performance improvement methodologies. And there is, as everybody will tell us, as much as we want to and genuinely encourage that sharing, learning, community experience, which is ultimately what it is doing, there is an element of competition. Am I moving fast enough? Am I moving with my peers? Am I suddenly going off and being left behind, or what? So it does give that sense check between companies. Some of that's confidential within your scorecards, and others, as I said, that leaderboard that drives that race to the top. And as Textile Exchange, we want to be able to celebrate as an industry how we're doing in this raw material space. And this is really the only way we can get that overall sense of achievement and progress. So when journalists or others, point to the textile industry and say, what are you doing? This is one way you can say, well, we're contributing to a benchmarking program that's tracking progress against really important indicators. And we've got this yardstick and progress tracker to use. And then, and as I was saying, it is an effective engagement tool to communicate within your companies. Your CEO might want to say, how are we doing in this space? Or, hey, I'm looking at the leaderboard and we're not on it. So it's internally drives that progress, and then externally with other organizations. So I think it's just important to stop and reflect on, the importance of this program from a broader perspective. And speaking of broader perspectives, this is really just just for you to glance your eye over to see, reporting, disclosure, frameworks to do that. We're in this really interesting, I think, pivot space at the moment for those that are following the disclosure and reporting agenda, where there's a lot more convergence and harmonization around the different indicators that we should be tracking, and the Value Reporting Foundation and the many various organizations that are part of that process are starting to come together to align on climate reporting, on ESG, so environmental sustainability, governance reporting, biodiversity reporting is an area that we're looking at too. So lots of movement to harmonize and consolidate. And we are doing exactly the same. So we're looking at how the platform that we provide can, if you like, consolidate some of the reporting requirements that many of you will be faced with. This is work in progress, but we're really proud to say that we have aligned reporting requirements with the Fashion Pact. So the signatories that have stepped up to be part of the Fashion Pact, and many of them are parts of our membership as well, will be reporting in a one-stop shop, if you like, for the Fashion Pact commitments, the Material Change Index, and the various challenges that we've set up within Textile Exchange, the Sustainable Cotton Challenge, and Recycled Polyester Challenge. So one-stop shop for reporting, harmonization, streamlining, efficiency, not just for you as companies, which is our ultimate goal, but for us as organizations that are wanting to track this stuff. The more aligned we can be on what those indicators are, the better, obviously, but also that debate and continuous improvement on methodology. Are we using the right indicators? And they change all the time. So the more we can work on alignment there, and that agreement on what the next iteration is of good, the better it is for everyone. So important stuff to be doing in collaboration. Now, I'm getting close to the end of this introduction, but we're now moving into the sort of the looking forward bit. Now, we've worked and we continue to work in a portfolio approach. So that's to look at what materials you use as a company, and then to look at those, what we call preferred options. That's a whole hour-and-a-half workshop in itself, but we're working to support you with various tools like our preferred fiber materials matrix, the challenges that I mentioned before, to kind of agree on what those preferred options are. They're changing and growing all the time, so this is not set in stone, but they're the ones that we've captured to date, and there's an option for you within your survey to identify alternatives to these ones that can be considered as well. So what we've been able to do with this portfolio approach is to model, and I stress the word model because it is very much using globalized averages, various kind of calculations and methodologies that are not, that are fairly blunt, but we've been able to come out with outcomes and impacts that say, okay, if we're using organic cotton, or we're using a recycled polyester, or what's that doing in terms of outcomes and impacts? So you can see that sort of middle space there, where you can see the land use and the resource use data. So we can track that using methodologies that are transparently communicated through our results guide. So where we're moving now, and this is exciting because I think we're all ready for this alignment with outcomes and impacts, is this sort of landscape approach, which means we need to get more regionalized to fully understand risks, impacts, the way to manage them from a regional perspective. So we can get a certain way, in a considerable way, through a portfolio approach, the next step is to say, okay, if I am sourcing, cotton, whereabouts in the world am I sourcing it, and whereabouts am I going to be hit with water risk or biodiversity kind of impacts, that sort of thing, deforestation issues, where am I safe, where do I need to take extra care and a digger deep. So that's the journey that we're on together. And for all you that are new, you're starting at this quite advanced level, and you will certainly be supported. There's no expectation that you can complete everything. And in fact, as we like to say, a blank answer or no answer is a really, really valuable answer, because that leads you into where you can start working next and where we can support you next. So I just thought I'd mention that up front. So this is the new framework model, which sort of reflects what I was just showing on the other screen. The bits in pale blue, where it says materials and circularity, those are the, if you like, the traditional bits of the MCI, and it's still the MCI. Those are the requirements to fill in for the material change index. Now, where you can see biodiversity, climate, oceans, and gold, these are the new modules. They're not scored. They're not part of the MCI methodology yet, but they are available as modules for anybody that's interested in exploring these areas. And we think this is a really nice way to go. You're not held, your feet aren't held to the fire in terms of scoring yet. But you do get feedback forms, and we will talk about those a bit later. You will get a sense of where the gaps are and where you need to go next. Now, you probably, for any of you that are familiar with the Fashion Pact, will see that this lines up quite closely with the Fashion Pact commitments, the climate, the oceans. More on that. I'm sensing this is quite a lot of information for you in my getting started piece. So this is what it looks like. We can talk more about this going forward. And I've just got this sort of next click down, if you like, to show that the areas under materials and circularity are the same as they've always been. And then you can see the question sets that will come up under climate, oceans, biodiversity. So that's the next click down with more data. I wanted to pause and just reflect on the incredible growth in the number of signatories that have signed up for our fibre challenges. And I guess just to kind of reiterate that this is all integrated. There's no separate place to go. There's no separate bits of the data. It's a subset of your material change index. And what we also want to really emphasize, if you are a challenge signatory and you just want to do the minimum requirements to meet your signatory commitments, that's absolutely possible too. And that will be, as we'll look at a bit later, a simple customization of your ProBench platform, your secure business portal, to bring up the questions that you need to answer to meet those challenges. Right, I've spoken for how long? For quite a long time, half an hour or so nearly on that grounding. I don't know if you want to pause for breath. I've got my water here. Are there any questions? Anybody want to come off mute, ask anything about that? And I can see a Q&A pop up. I'm just going to have a look and see what Charlotte says. Thank you, Charlotte. Does the benchmark have the same number of questions in each section, biodiversity and circular business integration? That's a really good question, Charlotte. And as you can probably see, there are already, you can see that there are click downs within each section. So the material change index normally has 6 questions within strategy, 6 questions within circularity. There's a little bit of a, let me go back there just to sort of show you again what, this is so great for us because this is a new model. So hearing those sorts of questions is really, really valuable, and I hope we can answer them. There's been, I guess, and I hope this makes sense, but over the next 2 years, we're transitioning from a model, and I actually don't have the old model put up. Maybe Prina or someone online can just send the link to the methodology page on the MCI website, and you'll see probably the more familiar model that we've been using. So this is in transition. And it's in transition because we're separating out the sections that are going to be into that impact area you saw before, that kind of pivot that we have in line with Climate Plus to get more intentional around impact areas. So there's a slight reshuffle of some of the questions to start preparing us for that. The questions themselves haven't changed. So if I go to this next slide, we're asking you around strategy, setting impact targets here. The materiality question comes up here. The accountability is around leadership and then internal engagement. Materiality, sorry, that does still come up there. That's your assessment piece and your stakeholder engagement. So this is all fairly much the same as it has been. The number of questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, has changed a little bit because we have pulled investment into this part of the survey, and probably too much information, but just to kind of highlight why we've done that. And this was feedback from many companies that said, we don't necessarily invest in cotton and wool and down in different ways. We might do that, but we might invest in regenerative agriculture, or we might invest in new technology, or whatever the investment is. So what we've done is we've kind of brought that question together into one question. So you, as a company, you're not repetitively doing it through the different fiber modules. As I said, probably too much information now, but we've done a little bit of streamlining there. We've taken what was in the material question around impact over into this part of the survey. It won't affect the question. It's still the same, but this will evolve next year. And then we're using this materials portfolio piece as the real, if you like, the nucleus of the program. This is where you put your uptake data. And the irony of this is kind of the, if you like, the nucleus, the bit that we want you to do. As if anything, we want you to do this bit, because that gives us the opportunity to track progress, and for you as companies to really start to get a sense of the volumes of these materials that you're using, even if you choose to only answer the as I said before, the recycled polyester challenge questions, and so on. So this is the nucleus. I don't know, Charlotte, if that answered your question. Let me go back to your question, make sure. So biodiversity and circular business integration, they've all roughly got around the same number of questions. We can definitely share the guide, and you can obviously log on and take a look. Anybody else have any questions at this point? I'm not seeing any, so, raise that hand. I'll be monitoring now as I turn you over to Prina. And Prina, I'm going to drive your slide, so just say next when you're ready to go.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Liesl. That was great. Now that we have gone through an overview of the program and seen sort of the growth and been familiarized a little bit with the MCI framework, I wanted to take you through the survey itself. in the survey overview section. In the next slide, to begin with, I wanted to take you through the annual benchmark cycle, first of all, as my colleague Jessie would highly appreciate. So this is just a brief overview, but I thought it is important to sort of take you through how we run this annual program. As many of you know, that we have just launched the 2022 survey. The current survey submission period is open from last week, that's June 21st, to Friday, September 2nd. So that's about 12 weeks of survey submission period for participants. And during this time, companies start filling out the survey and avail our support services, such as these getting started workshops or the drop-in clinics in summer, etc., which ensures benchmark participants are fully supported throughout the submission phase. And once the survey submission period closes in September, and all participating companies have submitted their surveys, the corporate benchmark team undergoes a validation process, which is the second one in the right side of the page. And validation is about all the submitted surveys, and the team goes to a check of consistency, accuracy, evidences, etc. And please note that this is not an audit, but it's a review of the information and the data that the companies submit to us through the Material Change Index survey. Then we enter an analysis phase to prepare for the results, and that's in January and February, after which in March, we hit the reporting phase to generate confidential scorecards for each participating company and a rigorous analysis of aggregated data for industry insights, such as the MCI leaderboard, impacts dashboard, annual insights report, etc., which we will cover later in today's presentation. And throughout the benchmark cycle, we do endeavor for something called bench learning, where we want participating companies to connect, learn from each other, share experiences, share feedbacks. And this we sort of achieve through either workshops like this or drop-in sessions that we run throughout the summer. And we will share a little bit more about it later in the presentation, or meeting you through conferences and things like that. So we do ensure there is enough peer-to-peer learning throughout the benchmark cycle. In the next slide, now I want to familiarize you a little bit with the benchmark platform and walk you through the look and the feel of the survey itself. Since this session is for beginners and new participants, I assume most of you are new to the platform. So welcome to the CFMB platform, first of all. If there's anyone who is already familiar with the benchmarking platform, well, you're welcome back. But just for whoever is new, we wanted to share a little bit about this platform, which is called ProBench and is managed in partnership with our developer 73bit. 73bit creates platforms for many impactful benchmark programs, including the United Nations Principles for Responsible Investments, or the Access to Nutrition Index, and the Business in the Community, etc. The platform houses our corporate benchmark program and is the safe home to Material Change Index survey. It is important to mention that the platform is fully secure and we provide access only to benchmark practitioners. And in common day-to-day life, we call it the CFMB platform. CFMB obviously stands for Corporate Fiber and Materials Benchmark Program. So you'll hear that a lot from us. And that's about the platform. In the next slide, I want to take you through how companies interested in the benchmark can sort of register. Obviously, the first step to enter into the benchmark platform is to register as a new participant, as you can see on the slide indicated below, and which directs you to a short registration form seeking your company and contact details, survey category, etc. And once we receive the registration, we activate your access within 48 hours. If your company is benchmarking with us already and you or your colleague already has access to the CFMB portal, you can just directly log in, or even if you've forgotten password, obviously there's a link to reset your password as indicated once again in the slide. It is worthy to note that we normally grant 3 to 4 users access for each company. So let us know in case you need sort of additional access and things like that. And we are very happy to help you. And in case you encounter any issues, of course, reach out to us in our email ID, which we'll share at the end of the presentation. So this is about registering into the platform, which is pretty straightforward, I guess. But definitely a very important step when somebody is getting started with their survey. In the next slide, this is how the landing page of the CFMB portal somewhat looks like. There's a generic announcement section on the top. And to find the current survey, you can scroll down to surveys and scorecards. Under the new tab, you will want to click the relevant 2022 survey. And here it's indicated as a brand and retailer MCI survey 2022, for instance. And if you have not started your survey in the current year, you will find it under the new tab. But once you sort of begin filling out the survey, this survey will move to the open tab, indicating that the survey is open for you and is waiting for your submission. In the next slide. Now, before diving even deeper into the survey itself, I wanted to share about the different benchmark options available. It is really important, and especially for new participating companies, to know that there are different ways to complete the survey. And there are 3 survey options to choose from, depending obviously upon many factors such as participants' willingness, available resources, level of experience, information or data available, etc., etc. But I just wanted to quickly take you through the 3 options too, and then I will take you through a demonstration as well. The option 1 that's on the left side of your screen, as you see, is called the Material Change Index, or the full survey. So in order to get a holistic overview of your efforts and to receive a complete scorecard, also to qualify for the overall material change index that Liesl spoke about earlier in the presentation, companies should complete the full survey, which includes business integration module, circularity, and materials portfolio. And I think Liesl showed you through that beautiful framework. That's where we can take you through again if there are any questions going forward. But like, those are the 3 sections that we expect companies to complete if they are opting for the MCI full survey. The other option is a modular approach. Now, for companies who do not feel ready to take on the entire survey, or those who prefer to focus on certain modules or certain materials, there is an option available which requires you to complete the modules that you sort of select. Of course, this does mean that you will need to complete the business integration module, and you can choose between circularity strategy or complete both if that's comfortable for you, and also complete the materials portfolio modules. And we will once again take you through a little bit more, because I know these terminologies could be a lot. So I'll take you through the demonstration in a minute. And the third option is the progress tracker. This option allows participants to submit materials uptake targets and volumetric data only. This option allows for progress tracking against targets and specifically accommodates those companies who have signed up for fiber challenges or commitments, such as the 2025 Sustainable Cotton Challenge or the 2025 Recycled Polyester Challenge that Liesl mentioned earlier in this presentation. So now I know it sounded like a lot of information, but choosing which combination do you want to go with is not as difficult as it sounds, and we'll take you through this now in the next slide. So yeah, see, that's how simple it is. Here is a glimpse of how when you open the 2022 survey, it will look fairly simple, because the survey has because the survey is built in such a way that depending on the selections that you make and the options that you choose, it'll open up, it'll open up relevant modules for you to complete. This is basically driven by your selection of benchmark options and materials portfolio, which I will talk in a bit. So yes, in the next slide, as you see, the first section is definitely the mandatory section, which has 3 subsections: terms and policy. So mandatory section, as the term itself stands for, is for all the participants, irrespective of what benchmark option they select. Terms and policy section needs to be completed by all the participants, because we want to ensure that they understand it and are clear about it. Then benchmark options, as I mentioned, drives a lot of how your survey opens up for you, and I'll take you through in a minute. And there's also company profile information that's very important for us to know that the reporting company and the correct information that we have and handle. So these are the mandatory, these are the sections under the mandatory questions. And in the next slide, perfect. As promised, I'll take you through how benchmark options work, and depending on what benchmark options you select, your survey will further open up modules or sections that you need to complete. You can choose from, as mentioned before, you can choose from the 3 survey options that you can also see on the right side of your screen, either the material change index full survey or the modular or the materials tracker that we spoke about. And there are also some different sort of modules: biodiversity, climate, oceans, and also gold module that you can select through. And there's also a provision to sort of select if you are a signatory to any of the challenges, that is a sustainable cotton challenge or the recycled polyester challenge. Now here, the scenario that we will be necessarily taking you through is this combination that I've selected already for you on the screen. That's the material change index full survey. For example, let's take you through an example. For example, I'm a sustainability manager of a company new to the CFMB program. Of course, I'm excited about this journey and want to complete the survey in the various options that's available. And I choose to sort of take this combination that you see on your screen. That's the material change index full survey. I'm interested to see where my company is at in biodiversity questions. So I've selected that. And then I'm also signatory to the Sustainable Cotton Challenge. So I have done those selections. And then in the next slide, you can see that the relevant sections have opened up depending on your benchmark options that you've selected. That is the business integration, materials modules, circularity, any of the impact modules that you wish to complete. And of course, once again, the biodiversity section, apologies, comes under the impact modules. And I also wanted to mention about the materials balance sheet. This is something that all participants complete, irrespective of your survey options, because this is sort of a place where either you are a progress tracker or a modular or a full MCI, you sort of submit the volumetric data in the materials balance sheet. So we recommend, in the materials balance sheet, we obviously recommend companies to select as many materials as possible that are available in your portfolio to get an overview, complete overview of the materials balance sheet and its functionality. Now depending on the materials in the next slide. Yeah. So as you see, when you select the materials balance sheet, it opens up different subsections. And now depending on the materials that you choose, for example, if I am a cotton t-shirt company, then I select only cotton. But if I'm a multi-brand retailer using various fibers and materials, I select as many materials as I can. And this will drive the next set of sections that will open up in your survey. So like I mentioned before, benchmark options, simple. And the second one is the materials that you select in the materials balance sheet. So in the next slide, as you can see in this slide, which prompts, depending on what you've completed, it opens up the respective material portfolio where you complete the volumetric data as per your selected materials that you use in your company. So I did not want to get into the specific bits of the materials balance sheet, as it is in itself a section which we will be conducting in July during one of our weekly drop-in sessions. But I wanted to give you an overview of how selections sort of drive the way your survey opens up, and that there is a lot of flexibility in the survey. There is a lot of support needed that we will also once again talk about going further in the presentation, but just wanted to show you a glimpse of how things work in the survey. In the next slide. Yeah. Once again, like I said, we will have a dedicated session on the materials balance sheet in July in one of our weekly drop-in sessions that we run every Thursday. But not to cut it short, I also wanted to give an overview of the volumetric data that's sort of how it looks in the materials balance sheet, and sticking back to our scenario of if a company is completing its full MCI along with being a signatory or sustainable cotton challenge, here is how it looks. Your priority portfolio sort of looks like this, depending on what you've selected. And for receiving an MCI score, you will, as mentioned before, you will have to select the materials modules that that your company sort of selects, and you get an overall score depending on the priority materials that is over 10% of your entire portfolio. So this was a glimpse of that. In the next slide, this sort of shows, so we have gone through mandatory sections, we have gone through how we selected the MCI full survey, which gave us the business integration, materials modules, materials balance sheet, and circularity. These are the mandatory sections if a company wants to go for MCI full survey. Now, and there is an impact modules where there are optional selections. But now if I was a company that did not want to complete or was not ready to complete the full survey, there was, as I explained before, there is built-in flexibility to select the modular section, and then you have different sort of combinations that you can select. For example, if you go for modular and you want to complete cotton, polyester, and wool module, and you want to complete circularity module, that's all right. You can complete those sections as you wish. And then your survey will handle the selections accordingly. So just wanted to remind you that the survey has a lot of inbuilt flexibility, and there is quite a number of guidance around it. So in case you found that this was too much, just feel free to ask questions, as I'll stop now for a few minutes if Liesl wants to add something, or if any of the audience has any questions so far.
That was great, Preena. I know it's a lot of information to be hit with in a workshop, and we're pretty sure that once you start to sort of use ProBench, you'll get a sense of everything that Preena's just mentioned. Will be kind of there for you to kind of use to guide you through that process. But yeah, it's a great. I was just trying to think, and we didn't set a poll up, Preena, but it would be very interesting at this point to know on a scale of 1 to 5, or hands up or whatever, how everyone's feeling about the customization of the survey. Don't know if anybody wants to come off mute and ask a question, throw in a comment at this point. No pressure. We're sure it'll come clear when you start to do it. But I guess I'll talk for a bit so people can think about whether they want to raise their hand or ask a question. But probably to summarize or riff off what Preena just said, we have endeavored to make it as flexible as possible. So there's many choices depending on where you are on your journey. And I think, Preena, you summed it up nicely with, the resources available right through to where you really want to focus as a company, with the, if you like, the prize or the cherry on top being the MCI leaderboard, which is that framework that we use for the scoring methodology to give you an MCI result. But there is definitely options to pick and choose from the various modules that we have available now. I hope that's kind of clear. As you can tell, we're growing and expanding and kind of absorbing a lot of change as well. So we totally welcome any feedback, anything that kind of comes up for you as you go through the process. I think you have our email address. It certainly will be shared with you if you haven't. And we do have this sort of 2-year phase in with the different modules. Great. We have a Q&A question from my friend Charlotte. Thank you, Charlotte. I think that's the same question. Oh no, I'm looking at the answered question. Sally, thank you, Sally. Just wondering what the difference is between this and using the HIG brand and retail module? Very good question, Sally. This is all part of this 2-year transition that we are in, and you might be delighted or horrified, or equal measures of both, to know that we are working very closely with the SAC for that hand-in-glove experience, which is a bit different. Just to kind of, by contrast, the Fashion Pact relationship is, okay, signatories, you've signed up to meet various commitments within the Fashion Pact tiers, the pillars of climate, ocean, and biodiversity. Go to the Textile Exchange, CFMB portal, and answer the questions here, and then we can report out on how we're doing as the Fashion Pact. So that's one model. With the SAC and the brand and retail module, it's a little bit different, but equally as exciting. And you may remember, Sally, if you're actually doing the BRM goes from sort of, covers all the different components within a company's kind of, from the sourcing of the raw materials right through to packaging and logistics and other components. Now, that's a very broad, wide, horizontal layer, if you like. We are very deep in one part of that, and that's the raw materials tier 4. So where we're heading is for companies to complete the raw materials piece through our program. Now, it won't be every single question, but if you go one idea, and SAC might say, I got this completely wrong, but because we're still talking about it, is that you would go into your BRM survey or vice versa and say, I'm doing the BRM, let's say, and then that will take you to the questions that we will be having, which will be the same. So we're harmonizing on what those question sets are, and they will be submitted through our portal. And vice versa, if you say, I'm doing the BRM, I want my allocated questions on raw materials to go in. Now, that might not technically, or the technology might not be set up perfectly for a nice data transfer to start with, but I guess the moral of the story is you'll be answering questions on raw materials once to satisfy both surveys. And I hope that's sort of helps. Feel free to give any feedback on that, Sally, if there are any other questions on that. So yes, lots of movement, lots of change. But I think, as Prina pointed out, there's some really clear guidance on how this works. We're feeling very confident on how it works this year, even with the growth and the changes in the survey. And I guess the bottom line is that it's offering flexibility, offering different modules, but ultimately producing an MCI as we always have. And Prina, I know actually there's a few more Q&A. Oh, great, Sally. I hope that was clear. Certainly lots more discussion, stakeholder engagement. This is really all about making this work for you guys. And what's driving it is A, we don't want these programs to compete, and B, let's be more efficient. Let's align and give the user, the company, a kind of a more joined up experience and more sort of value because of that. Miriam has asked, I refer to the info you gave that data on materials can be filled in once to be shared with BRM. Yeah, so that's the goal, Miriam. I'm speaking kind of for the future at this point, because we're still, both our organizations are still working on how that will be, but it's driven by a quest for alignment, a quest for efficiency, and a quest for reducing the burden on you as companies. So the outcome, we hope, is that you will fill in your materials related questions in the CFMB, And of course, just to kind of step back, this only applies if you are doing both, right? You don't have to do both, but where you are doing the BRM and the MCI, it's one set of questions on raw materials, and that will sit with us. Obviously, we'll be figuring out what those questions are, very open to that kind of cross-pollination from where SAC work has got to. But as you can imagine, we've spent 7 years continuously refining this question set. So we think we're, and the SAC have already they already come to us for those definitions, the preferred materials piece. So, you know, that's kind of been set up already to extract, if you like, the knowledge and the experience that we've gained through the MCI to support where the SAC has got to with raw materials. This is going to the next level of, okay, you don't have to fill in this information twice. It'll be just once. I've talked around that quite a lot, Miriam. Does that, okay? When will this be fully streamlined, do you think? Yeah, great. I hope that's a vote of confidence. It's kind of understood. And it's work in progress. And we're working with Miravea and Jeremy and the team as we speak. Now, if you are familiar with the BRM, you'll know that their strategic review of the program is running over 2 years, as is ours, with these layers of ambition that we have and complexity that we're trying to figure out. So we will have this in place by the next cycle, so by the 2023 cycle. So we hope. Okay, there's one more question. I think this is fine to be great. Thanks, Miriam. Great to keep this conversation going. So always circle back, and you know, it's a start of more discussion and dialogue that, as Prina said, we're committed to over the next few months. And on that note, Prina, I think you've got, so we have some guidance and support. So let's move into that. I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Lisa. So we're excited to share that we have added plenty of guidance and resources such as definitions, links, etc. to the survey. And in the next slide is a clear demo of how you are in the survey, in the platform, and there is inbuilt guidance in every step of your way. Firstly, we have collapsible guidance that's highlighted in green on the top. With the help of the drop-down arrow, you can glance through the guidance, definitions, links, and then you can scroll it up. This is available in each and every section or subsections, in fact. The other very useful set of guidance is throughout the survey questions, we have underlined words, and you can hover over those to find out definitions and meanings, etc. There's also a green question mark on the right of each question that you can see on the screen, right side of the screen, which explains what the question implies or what is it asking for. So we hope you find these useful and handy during your benchmark experience. In the next slide, we have also created a full suite of guides for you to find complete guidance and information around our survey, methodology, and more. And at the moment, we have all the links here. We do want to do a bit of a visual while we are sharing this as a follow-up with you. All these guides have been sort of updated for the current year survey. So it's all on its way and it's all together for you. In the next slide. Okay, so now this is the part where I pass it over to you, Liesl, to take you through the benefits of benchmarking. Thank you, everyone.
Great. You're doing well, everyone. Keep those questions coming. I will tell you why it's all worthwhile. Well, it's worthwhile for all the learning and team effort and data organization within your organization. I think we get told that all the time, don't we, Prina, that people really benefit from that sheer experience of benchmarking as much as the results themselves. So, but let's have a look at what you get. And we're very proud of our confidential scorecards on a number of levels. One, they look incredibly gorgeous now. They're all digital, and as you know, with digital technology and infographics, they're improving all the time in terms of their sophistication and interactivity. So I think we've got them to a pretty good place. But yeah, we're always keen to make those as exciting for you, the user, as possible. There's currently 2 levels of confidential scorecard. And when I say confidential, we really mean that. This is only shared back to you within your secure platform. So when Prina showed you where the new survey and then the open survey, once you submit your survey, there'll be another tab pop up where that will also house your scorecard. So we don't share anything over email. We don't, copy things in anywhere. So that is at the moment required for you to go in and pull out your confidential scorecard. So this will give you your results, obviously, and it'll give you 2 other sets of results. One will be what we've called your subsector, where you select, we're an outdoor and sports company, or we're a home textile company. So if you like, there's a group of peers that we feel you are more interested in, so to speak, in terms of where you sit against them. So that's, and I'll emphasize, you won't get an individual comparison, but you will get the average for that group of companies against, you'll get your result, you'll get the average for your subsector. And then you'll also get the average for all companies that are taking part. So that will give you your kind of comparative yardstick within 1 year. And then once you move into your 2nd and 3rd and 4th year, you will get that same sort of opportunity to compare yourself 1 year against the other, and showing that improvement journey, which we think, obviously, it's the action, it's the doing that is obviously the crucial piece here. But so what we offer is that way to track how well you're doing, and give you that, if you like, independent voice. And so getting back to standard and advanced, what the difference between the 2 of these are is that in the advanced scorecard, we include this modeling of outcomes and impacts. So your standard scorecard will take you through the benchmark questions. You'll get we can probably show a bit of that. I'm just going to check. Yeah. So this is a bit small. They're little screen grabs. You can see here, you'll get your annual volumetric data use. And if what I'll say is, if this is your very first year, but you've been really good at collecting your volumetric data over previous years, there is a place which you will find as you go into your MBS to actually put in previous year's data. I mean, obviously, if you're a returning company, that will be pre-filled for you. But if you want to jump into some comparative visuals here, there is the opportunity to backdate some of these volumes to get that nice trend line. If you're coming in first straight and fresh and you haven't done any of that before, totally fine. It'll be your first year of data, and that's a super achievement, and you'll get that here. The comparative with previous years and with the subsector and sector that I was saying, is demonstrated in these sort of blue bar charts here. And then the piece that I was talking about, the advanced scorecard, is where you start to get into some of these interesting modeling opportunities. And if I go back here, we model once again for harmonization, for consolidation, for not getting kind of one result from one program and a different result from another, where we're using the Higg Materials Sustainability Index, the MSI, for water, carbon, and energy. And then we have other areas that we're modeling, such as land under preferred materials, the equivalency in plastic bottles. We've got the number of cows or sheep or that is represented under a particular preferred material certification. And I'm sure you're all aware of these, sort of almost damned if you do, damned if you don't situations. We work to best available methodologies, and it is a modeling exercise to track some of those outcomes. It's improving all the time. There's debate and discussion. I think you all know that this is not perfect, but it's certainly the only way to get to a better set of data is to start using good existing methodologies and keep improving. So I may have overcompensated or overemphasized that point, because we do think it's important to model these things. We're also very cognizant of the fact that it's not perfect data yet, but we think it's important. And then we have what we call a premium, which isn't really a scorecard in itself, but if you want to come to us and say, look, we want a deep dive on polyamide, or we want you to present something to our board, or we want to do a deep dive on our gaps and what our quick wins are and where we should be spending more time investing. And this is totally customized by your needs. We do charge for this as an extra. The others are generated through our program, the scorecards. So it's a build. So you can either have a standard or you can have an advanced. And I should have pointed out that the advanced scorecards is immediately available to members of Textile Exchange and Sustainable Apparel Coalition. So that's the benefits of one of the benefits of membership. But we, of course, don't exclude. I should have pointed out earlier, maybe this is voluntary, this is open access, and we do the same degree of review and all the attention that we pay to members as we do to non-members as we do to members through that review process, because everyone benefits from more companies taking part. So you don't have to be a Textile Exchange member. Obviously, we want you to be, and we'd love that. We do see added value, including the advanced scorecard. But yeah, any questions on the premium, please come to us. This is totally a co-created option, and we're very excited to support you on your needs to drive that deeper material change. And I think the other thing to say about the confidential scorecard, as well as it being confidential, is we do, and maybe I think there's a link somewhere, Prina, maybe you could put it in the chat box. You can go and review the sector level scorecard, which is only aggregated results. And then you can also get a sense of how the scorecards work as a interactive digital scorecard. It's not exactly the same as the one that you will get as an individual company, but you'll get a general sense of how they work and how to move around the sector level scorecard. And speaking of what you can get out of the public domain, and in fact, here's the link right here to the one I was talking about, our beautiful material change leaderboard. We hope every company feels proud and feels like a role model and definitely a change maker to be on the leaderboard. We think, and I know it sounds schmaltzy and all of that, but every company that steps up, the 200, the 300, the 500, it's still leadership, right? There's thousands of companies out there that aren't even ready to sort of take part in this. So leadership, and this sort of is something we talk about a little bit now around leaderfulness. So how we're all leaders, and that leadership and that collaborative leadership can really accelerate change and that community sense of in this together. And even within the performance bandings that, Prina, I don't think we've actually covered, but that could be something for another day. But just to mention that there are quartiles within, so you'll see a 4 or a 3 or a 2 and a 1. What this reflects is where you are in the journey around different components of it. And you know, that's where the race to the top is about filling out and driving your company up from a 1 to a 2 or a 2 to a 3. And of course, if you've got your CEO saying, why aren't we a level 4, you know, you can turn around to your CEO or whatever, and CFO, and say, let's resource this, you know, let's resource what we need to do to get there. And obviously that's way beyond filling in a form. But, you know, you can leverage this to drive change. And that was one of the big feedbacks we got from so many companies. They wanted to be, if they were a 1 or a 2, that's great. We're out there, we're doing it. You know, let's use that to leverage the next level of change. And then getting onto that dashboard, that kind of, as I was saying before, that impact modeling. This is more of a communal space. We don't pull out various companies there. That's in the leaderboard. So this is sort of, how are we doing as an industry? How can companies and others, even outside our sector, come in and see where are we at with you know, our drive towards the climate goals, or progress within various materials. And you can have a cruise around this dashboard. It's very interactive. You can go by different materials. That's another public facing tool, the sector scorecard I talked about. And of course, our lovely new insights report, where we step back from all this data and these numbers and, you know, information. And we think, okay, what are we actually seeing here? What's happening? What can we report back to the industry to encourage, inspire, and drive more change? Any questions? And let's see what's on our next slide. Yeah, I mean, Prina, shall I just cover this bit and then we can, so aligned with that communication that I was just saying there are ways for you to show how proud you are to be involved in the index program, the benchmark program. I shouldn't mix my words now. We have badges, and we would feel very, very proud to see you as a company use your badge, whether it's in your sustainability report, on your email signature, you know, on social media. We're hoping these kind of just give a bit of visible recognition for companies that quite like the idea of showing this more selectively. And we do, of course, create lots of new, you know, when we're promoting something like the results, there's various ways you can use our social media. And now that we have a lovely, fully resourced communications team, this works just getting, and a lovely new design and branding, this is getting better all the time. Is there anything I've missed, Prina? Covered a lot there too.
No, that's great. Thank you, Lisa. I think we just have a couple slides, call to action, and then we can open the floor for a couple minutes in case somebody wants to ask any questions. So yeah, thanks for your patience, and thanks for listening in. And like I mentioned, before we open the floor for question and answers, I just wanted to take you through these top tips or call to action. To get started, please register if you haven't already into the CFMB portal, and that's the link there. We invite and encourage you to join the hub community of companies creating material change, as it is called, to stay updated on all announcements, news, updates related to the benchmark program. Once again, do check out our suite of guides, which is available on our website, and that's the handy link. And as mentioned before, we will be running weekly drop-in clinics throughout July and August, every Thursday, I think afternoon CET, 4 p.m. CET. So that's sort of a central time for most of the different time zones. And we would love for you to join the safe space on Thursdays to ask your questions, share your experience, provide feedback. And yeah, we would love to host you. So that's from me, that's from Lisa. In the next slide, I think we have our lovely benchmarking team. So yeah, last but not the least, I wanted to take a moment to share our fabulous corporate benchmarking team here at Textile Exchange, who is working tirelessly behind the scenes and will be supporting you throughout your benchmark journey. So that's everyone there. And once again, thank you for your time. We are incredibly grateful for this opportunity and would love to hear any questions, any feedback that you have now. So floor is open to you.
Yeah, there was a lot of information. I hope you found it interesting and thought-provoking. If there is any questions, we certainly would like to hear them either now, or we can give you 15 minutes of your day back. That'll probably stop any flow of questions. Yeah, I think, you know, as Prina said, we can't emphasize enough how we are primed and ready to support you through this next sort of window where it's kind of like over to you. As Prina said, the team has been working tirelessly, I think, to get the survey up and running with all those various moving parts that we've discussed, this guidance material, and now we're really at your service. Obviously, we have summer and there will be tag teaming through holidays, as I hope you all will be too, making the most of the summer period. Now I really have got into general conversation mode. So on that note, I will raise your hand, ask a question. We're here, Jessie's here, or we will be signaled by your silence that this was enough for now, and you'll be back. Okay, well, I'm then going to put us on to the last slide, last moment, last round. I think it's a chat box. I think we are done for the day. So thank you for joining, everybody. Really appreciate having you with us. Right, Pina?
Thank you to our speakers as well. It was wonderful, and really appreciated the participation from you as participants and your question that you shared with us. And as Liesl and Prina have shared, that they are more than happy to be there for any questions that you have moving forward. And we're excited about your desire to participate in this benchmark. And as a friendly reminder, an email will be sent to all registered participants with a link to today's presentation. Also, be sure to go to the hub to continue questions or discussion, or to find any other resources that you need. That concludes our webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.